Back in July of this year, we got to see the start of the continuation slash reboot of the Gumball series, going from the Amazing World of Gumball to the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. The original Gumball series holds a special place in my heart and many people's hearts. It was a show that wasn't afraid to be weird and offbeat, using a whole bunch of different animation styles and techniques to create a truly unique world that all of these characters live in. When seeing what the first season of this new series had to offer, it really ended up just feeling like more Gumball, as if no time at all between both series had passed. Aside from how that last season started, there was really no direct explanation for how the original series ended and how we get to this series being back now, as the original series all ended on a major cliffhanger that really hasn't been addressed. So will this series directly address or mention more of the dark and unsettling way the original series came to an end? Or is that something reserved for the Gumball movie that has apparently just not been able to become a thing ever since it was announced? Like seriously, where is that movie? Either way, let's dive back into this new Gumball series, as 20 new episodes have all just been released. Once again, no longer being a Cartoon Network thing, but technically a thing you can watch on Disney Plus now because of it being on Hulu. Weird times. But that's perfect for a show with weird in the title. Let's see what the wonderfully weird world of Gumball Season 2 has to offer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each episode from this drop, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts on them. I really enjoyed the first season, and what a nice holiday end of the year gift to get the next season right now. Hopefully. So let's jump right into this with episode 1. Bringing us back into the world of Gumball, the wonderfully weird world that is. The first episode, The Summoning, focuses on Darwin, who ends up joining a witch coven with a few other girls in the school after being turned away from being the photographer of the yearbook, a position he really wanted after we see him showcasing his work to Gumball at the start and being so proud of it. The other members of the coven have been wronged by the others who are in charge of the yearbook production, with them being given meaningless tasks that are just designed to dismiss them. Darwin is pretty interested in joining them as he's already seen some crazy stuff because of his girlfriend Carrie, so any of this witch business is not going to drive him away. And not that each season needs to really start off with a certain type of episode, but this one is really just about Darwin, pushing Gumball to the side as this super supportive friend who gasses Darwin up and wants to see him shine, and I like that. It's a pretty good bit. I like that Gumball is so supportive of his friend here. I just found this episode placement as the first episode of the season to be a bit odd. It could have been the second or third and I wouldn't feel any type of way about it. And it could also be from the fact that this could be a one season thing that was split into 2 parts and labeled as 2 separate seasons, but regardless of those semantics, if that's even true, it's still a solid episode with some great jokes in it. Aside from the moments of Darwin not knowing what witch stereotypes are offensive or not, I thought the bit where he pulls an overly attached fish parasite out of himself that once it gets tossed aside, it yells "I love you" to Darwin to be pretty funny and well done. When things get too out of hand with the witch powers and Masami is getting her revenge on everyone for voting her least photogenic in the previous yearbook, Darwin uses his skills as a photographer to show her herself in a nice light. And there's a lot of niceness here that just makes you go, yeah, Darwin, he's just a genuinely pure good spirit and always does what he can to help those who need it. And even through that, he got to use his photography skills. Not the best episode of the bunch here, but it's still a fun time overall. I just wouldn't have put it as the season opener, but hey, that's just me.
Coming up next, Gumball.
Episode 2, The Unfollow, has Gumball and Darwin realizing that Sarah, their number one, very obsessive, stalker-like fan, is no longer doing everything she usually would to them. On top of that, she has unfollowed them on social media, causing them to feel a sense of starving for attention, figuratively and literally, as they feel like things are wrong now without her being who she's been to them. So regardless of the whole montage of how creepy she is, and how she is essentially just stalking them, they want to do what they can to win her attention back. But she says that she's moved on. So now the two of them try to figure out ways to get her attention back, firstly by raising the production value, giving us a pretty iconic clip, one that you've probably seen circulating online in teasers for this season, of Gumball and Darwin looking like this, as this whole scene was done by James Baxter, a renowned character animator in the cartoon industry. It was really cool to see how over-animated, and I mean that in the best ways possible, all the movements are for them, being stretchy and bouncy, and yeah, the production value was definitely raised praised for this bit. It's a cool animation cameo, and I appreciate the efforts of it for those who know and for those who will hopefully do research and find out more about James Baxter's work. This all leads to a big sequence where we see the two of them trying many different things to win Sarah's attention back. There's a substance type of reference in here, which is crazy if that's what it's actually going for. And we even see them have a skibbity toilet moment as well. And now that's 2 videos in a row where I've mentioned skibbity toilet. The series pokes fun at itself with stuff like cliffhangers, as well as having jokes about gender-bent reboots, and it's all really fast-paced and pretty hilarious. It's even funnier when we get to see that the new person Sarah is obsessing over is AI generated. I mean, it's drawn to look like it is, it's not actually made from that. But it's just one of the first jokes that this season is full of that takes aim at generative AI. It's a really fun episode that gives you these multiple sequences that are a powerful showcase of both the animation side of the series and the comedic side, as the jokes were hitting for me personally, while the visuals were also great, especially the over-the-top sequence in the end and how ridiculous that it all gets. And a little bit of James Baxter's work never hurts nobody. It's a great time. I think this should have been the first episode of the season, but I guess it really doesn't matter. It's just my opinion on that. Episode 3, The Prom Posal, deals with an upcoming prom for middle school, which they make fun of for that even being a thing in the first place, as we see Carrie and Penny being the ones who have to make some sort of promposal to their boyfriends, with them being these anime characters who are longing for the perfect promposal to come to them. While Carrie ends up having the perfect and downright terrifying promposal for Darwin, Penny becomes worried that her poem isn't enough for Gumball, as he sets his expectations way too high for her, leading Penny on this escalation of promposal ideas and attempts that backfire into her feeling like she can't live up to being more than who she is to Gumball. Darwin does try helping her, but she doesn't want to come off as vanilla as she believes she can come off as. This all results in a promposal that takes Gumball on a whirlwind of an emotional ride, going from excitement to worry to sadness to happiness, and then nearly dead. All this ends up proving in the end is that Darwin can see that they were both really meant for each other. But despite her promposal going too far, and no, I don't mean the part where she seemingly gets killed during it, I do like that she got to incorporate her poetry into asking Gumball to the prom. It's silly, but I love how this series shows the ongoing relationships for Darwin and Carrie and Gumball and Penny. It's never just the usual relationship drama. It shifts those expectations to the characters really feeling meant for one another, and that they just have to deal with some ridiculous situation. Plus, the blending in of a real human in a costume for one bit was pretty cool to see here, and a standout moment for sure. And I love that this show never feels like it cuts corners. They go the extra mile to blend in animation techniques, styles, and even live action to make a visual spectacle basically every episode. For episode 4, The Trumpet, we focus on Nicole and how she views the future of her kids, seeing that Darwin and Anais are most likely going to grow up successful and that she has nothing to worry about, but Gumball, on the other hand, is worrying. Seeing that he has no real aspirations, she ends up deciding to get him a trumpet, telling the other family members that this will help Gumball find a certain level of drive in his life to not live one that is wasted and aimless. Also, they need to not tell him that he's awful at it even if he is, in order to not discourage him away from it. Of course, Gumball ends up being terrible at playing the trumpet, and we go through the motions of the rest of the family suffering from the sounds of it. Nicole won't let them break and tell Gumball the truth, especially after we see her hanging up a framed A+ that Gumball got on an exam, proving that the methods that she was trying to do by getting him this trumpet are working in the aid of him being more successful academically. As things get more and more annoying, Darwin and Anais end up saying screw it and try to tell Gumball the truth, only to then see that Nicole is investing more and more time into Gumball. Not only that, even the other's college funds, which makes what she's doing counterintuitive, saving one child but ruining 2 of the others. And look, I'm not saying there's a good choice here to make one way or the other, I'm just stating the facts. But after Darwin and Anais tell Gumball the truth, he ends up not really believing them, claiming that they are just jealous that he's the favorite child now. But once Darwin and Anais start becoming like how Gumball was at the start, and the fear of what her children will all become fester in Nicole's mind, she realizes something needs to be done. But if Gumball isn't going to listen, things might just solve themselves, as he sets up a recital at school of him playing the trumpet. Now, with how things do wrap up, I like the part of the real message here being in how Gumball appreciates his mother for believing in him. But Gumball, like the character he is, ends up going back to who he was at the start anyway. I appreciate the time we get in exploring Nicole as a mother, what's going on in her head and how she changes her approach to raising her kids depending on the different needs that come up, or from how her own perspective of believing what's right for them comes in and out of play. We explore plenty more of Nicole this season anyway, so this is just the start of that. For For the next episode, episode 5, The Synthesis, we continue to focus on Nicole as it ends up being career day at school, where her competitiveness results in her embarrassing Anais and scaring the rest of her class. After Anais tells her that what she did was cringy and that she needs to stop trying so hard, we see Nicole crying in the bathroom, but then in the stall next to her is her rival Yuki, crying over the same thing essentially, as they both feel like their daughters hate them. Because of the nature of their relationship and how things have gone in the past when they've come face to face, things get very anime inspired again. But more specifically, this whole episode feels like a big tribute to Dragon Ball Z and just Akira Toriyama in general. We get some flashbacks that tell us about the relationship they used to have growing up, having a shared sensei and were once working together on this fusion style technique. And going from rivals back into friends nearly, the two of them perform their technique to combine into one entity, just like the fusions in Dragon Ball, in the efforts of becoming the ultimate version of themselves, but just in the wrong ways, believing that they failed their daughters by not being as perfect as they could be. And from this going too far, both of their daughters, Anais and Masami, end up fusing together as well, as this leads to a full-on DBZ style fight over the town and even in space, complete with references to how long the screaming power-up moments take. Anais and Masami come at this with love and want to express that they don't need to be perfect in every way possible, but after claiming that they need to prove that they are the best, their daughters call them out again for those being the words of their mothers, giving us more context to the childhood these two had and how their mothers treated them, allowing them to understand that they don't want to keep the cycle of generational trauma going and just become who their mothers were to them. One thing Gumball as a series does well is not being afraid to talk about generational trauma or how easy it is for parents to still be dealing with what they went through growing up easily without realizing it, and then what it can take to work through that and move forward in healthier ways. I think it's genuinely great stuff, and I appreciate the show taking moments that feel more catered to an older crowd while still making it something for the younger audiences to understand, even if they didn't get it or can't directly relate to it, whether that be now or just in general. In these types of ways, Gumball stays undefeated. For episode 6, The Cheapmiss, we get a fun little Christmas episode that really takes a look at how bad things have become for adults in the world, having to focus harder on working more hours or taking second jobs or doing what they can to try and be able to afford gifts that, thanks to inflation and the economy, are part of the reason the adults are working more in the first place. This causes a lot of the adults to feel more miserable or lacking in that spirit of Christmas. From all of this, after Christmas is seemingly cancelled, Gumball and Darwin take things into their own hands to make everyone's holiday spirits rise, claiming it can all be done on the cheap because it's not all about the gifts. It's about so much more than that make this time of year special. We get a whole segment of them trying to decorate the town only for them to realize that it's not working. Even when they go beyond this to break into houses to leave presents, things aren't going in the right direction. But in the end, the spirit of Christmas and joy being spread to others, especially to the adults in the town, all seem to come back over re-gifting back the presents to the person that Gumball and Darwin borrowed them from. Well, they stole them from, but claimed that they were borrowing. Christmas seemed to be saved, and there was this funny bit at the end with the real Santa, but I feel like this episode was a bit disjointed, specifically coming from borrowing this van from a shady seller of items, and with all of the messaging about overworking in order to afford stuff. I feel like this falls into some of the problems that we saw in the first season, where things would be said or brought up for a point, but then that point never really is dug into, especially when it felt like it was attached to the plot itself, but then wasn't at all. And while the actions of Gumball and Darwin with their adventures of making things feel festive and delivering presents to other kids have some fun moments to watch, and honestly laugh at because it's funny, it just feels too all over the place. This made the ending underwhelming, as it felt like it just needed to somehow end on whatever note that they could write to get the characters out of the situation that they're in. There's still plenty of other good stuff though, the jokes are pretty decent, there's an Adventure Time cameo from Jake the dog, and even Gumball and Darwin expressing their true love for one another, as friends, but you know, they have a very close and interesting relationship with each other. Heck, we all remember what happened last season, right? Well, if not, go back and check out my previous Gumball video. Episode 7, The Score, focuses on Gumball and Darwin having time to understand the character of Ocho, who is an 8-bit character ripped right out of a retro video game, as he has anger issues that cause him to go pretty nuclear after a few of Gumball's jokes, and then beyond that, getting extremely upset at literally anything. Darwin ends up convincing Gumball to help Ocho where they can, leading to them getting a glimpse into his hard life, told through the perspective of a retro video game. In Ocho's vaporwave-looking house, we see a series of games for them to play together as Ocho expresses how hard it really is for him, as Gumball and Darwin really begin to understand the struggles Ocho goes through. Aside from getting this sad backstory of how he even got to Earth, we see a game that involves shooting money at bills that are coming in, all in order to not get the items and appliances in the house repossessed. best. They only get through this because of reinforcement from Ocho's mom joining for a moment to pay all the bills and then quickly leave again to go to work to be able to pay more of the bills, showcasing how little his mother gets to be in his life since she's always having to work. Eventually, we see that the difficulty for all these games that make up Ocho's life are permanently stuck on hard mode. They claim the game is rigged, which is really a metaphor for how life can feel, but to now game the system, as they say, they push through it all in the efforts of making the game of it all feel like a real video game, leading to them having fun together. And as a side note, all the games that we see them playing just really make me want like a WarioWare style version of Gumball as a video game, because this looks fun. I would play these. Ocho ends up appreciating all of this, saying that even though things are hard, that it is easier with friends. There's a lot to love in this episode. There's a bunch of awesome 8-bit art moments that just happen. There's some fun, stupid jokes from Gumball, and even a great bit about getting a mindful app to help not be angry, but then it being a reason to get angry because of all of the ads. And who wants an ad to interrupt them anyway? Gamer Sups. Use code Fringe and you're gonna get 10% off every time you order. Every single time. This is one of my favorite flavors actually. This is Chug Juice, and I do be chugging it to help get through these videos. If you already know about Gamer Subs and you're drinking it already, please use my code Fringe. It helps you get you 10% off and it directly supports the channel. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate everyone who does use my code. And if you've never tried it and you want to give it a shot, if you head over to Gamer Subs, you can go and get free samples sent directly to you with no credit card or anything else needed. You just put my code Fringe in and boom, they'll send it to you directly so you can try it out yourself. Supporting Gamer Subs with my code helps directly support the channel, so thank you to everyone who does use my code. It does mean a lot to me. But yeah, code Fringe, 10% off. Thank you so much. Let's get back to something else that's blue. I'm talking about Gumball. Anyway, I think this was a pretty great episode that takes a look at seeing life from someone else's perspective and to truly understand their struggles. I love seeing that Gumball and Darwin really helped Ocho with his anger and showed him a fun time despite life not being so easy. Then when alone, we see the two of them get furious at how hard things are for Ocho and why the world is the way it is to keep Ocho and his family down, which in general is more of a take on the overall systems in place in real life. Episode 8, The Diary, has Gumball and Darwin stumbling across the scattered pages of someone's diary, leading to them being told that it's from another student named Claire as they get so invested in reading it, following along the story that makes it seem like Claire ended up turning down another character named Wilson after he admitted his love for her. Once she ends up breaking up with her current boyfriend Gregory, who's a bit of a small-brained jerk, she realizes that Wilson has a kind heart and begins falling in love with him in the same ways that he tried to express to her. There's a bunch of twists and turns from there. I'm not trying to really spoil every detail of every episode, but overall, the big moral here isn't to not read someone else's private writings. If you really wanted to do that, should have got one of those password protect diaries from the commercials we all grew up with.
Password journal, batteries not included.
There's more so a message of your story still being written and not being scared to give something a shot even if it isn't something that will go on forever. You owe it to yourself to live your ongoing story, not to try and go by other stories that you've read before. At the end of the day, there's a cute story here and I appreciate the melodramatic way the story is told to us, while Gumball and Darwin get more and more invested into it and become a part of the story and the efforts of it not just ending. There's a lot of sweetness here just as much as it is funny. For episode 9, The Punishment, we have Gumball and Nicole needing to go to a disciplinary meeting at school based on how many days Gumball was late to school, which is a point of contention between Gumball and Nicole based on them blaming each other for why Gumball's in trouble in general. I love how this episode spends the first part of its time making it completely silent between the two of them, aside from snarls and grunts, as they are angrily at odds with one another and don't even want to speak. It's so intense that the rest of the family literally peace off and disappear for the rest of the episode. From dealing with all of this, they end up in a car accident, one they really blame on another driver with a certain license plate that says, as a mother, but for now, they are still at odds, but spending time on their way to school going at one another and their issues, with Nicole even getting another moment or two to realize her past trauma with her own mother and more heavily lingering things inside of her head. The person they do end up meeting with at the school is the head of the PTA, and basically from everything, Gumball is given summer school, but in realizing something as they argue more, is that they both have fault in why this punishment happened, and Gumball just really wanted to spend more time with his mom, as she realizes that she needs to be the one to also make an effort to spend more time with him. More importantly, they also find out that the car the PTA woman drives is the one with the license plate that says, as a mother, leading to Gumball and Nicole bonding over making this person's life a living nightmare. Like, they do psychological damage to this woman, messing with her perception of time, ruining her sanity in only ways that Gumball and Nicole could do together. So yeah, in the end, things are great for the two of them, and their their relationship, and not so great for the PTA woman, but you know, she kinda sucked anyway, so who cares, am I right? Episode 10, The Roast, brings us right into Gumball performing a roast of the character Alan for charity, with him going more in on the jokes each time he says something, but no one is laughing and instead are feeling uncomfortable because after all that roasting, Alan reveals that this is not that type of roast, it's actually a hog roast. And the point of the charity is all about teaching these young kids that, for the charity are referred to as positivitats, being positive and spreading niceness is what they need to be doing while growing up and what they need to be around, as Alan flips what Gumball did as the example of what not to become for the positivitats. After some convincing and being made to feel like people don't like him because of how he can come off when calling people out and or roasting them for their actions, he commits to no longer being like this and wants people to like him. So if being positive and kind is the way to go, then he'll just do it if he has to. Now, despite nearly failing at this right away, he does eventually really commit. First though, he explains where he's coming from when he does stuff like that, with this kind of turning into a mini therapy session for him, claiming that it's not for the sake of tearing someone down, and that with everything being nice, positive, and things given to you with no challenge, it's okay and often humbling to have pushback, being told no, or even having a silly joke flung your way. Darwin rebuttals with a quick song that really is just about us all being people, and that if someone isn't as smart as you, or you perceive them to be doing something in a stupid fashion, that it's okay, you shouldn't care that much if someone is pushing a pull-open door, for example. You shouldn't feel the need to comment and make that person feel worse, potentially. Gumball ends up burying his sharp tongue, literally, before pretty much needing it back right away. As Alan comes to them later on after Gumball is in this new mindset with how he sees people and what they're going through, as Alan's telling him that he was right, and that some form of jokes and pushback is good for the developing mind, as the positivitats have gone mad with power since they aren't told no, leading to them causing chaos and Gumball being begged to help out. He eventually does, and it's a nice build-up spectacle moment as Gumball goes full John Wick, defeating the state that they're all in from just doing what they want with no one having real control over them anymore. There's some great stuff in this episode. The animation specifically really stands out. It just looks fantastic. And the message at the end of the day, although a little disjointed, really falls into people needing a little bit of a clap back every once in a while, as per the character words, not just mine. And that bullying doesn't work, but sometimes, who knows, or something. But overall, it's a solid episode, with the messaging just kind of being a little blurry at the end. Coming back in for the start of the back half of episodes, we have episode 11, The Survivalists, which has Gumball getting hyperlocked into watching reality TV, so much so to the point where he believes that he can take on the challenges that happen in them better than the contestants can. And look, I get it, we've all been there. But he decides that he can basically do better in his own version of Naked and Afraid, getting Darwin in on it as they end up being locked out of the house by their dad, and yep, you guessed it, they're naked. While I am not a fan of the nudity jokes in general, it is funny that Darwin's feet are what gets censored out. Things, of course, don't end up going so well in the backyard, and eventually Richard decides to join them because it seems like they were having so much fun when they really weren't, because again, things weren't going all that great for them, but you know, thank goodness he sure kept his underwear on. Now, Richard was left in charge of making sure the kids wouldn't be doing this whole Naked and Afraid thing. Nicole and Anais were at a protest that Anais wanted to go to, and there is a good cutaway gag there checking in on her, basically being the only one there, and then she gets tackled by the authorities despite being peaceful with the protest. But all of these animals end up taking over the house at one point, and we get this part moral, part joke about what we are doing to the planet being really what we are doing to ourselves, which is a good and deeper message to elaborate on, but the show is just trying to make a joke about all this nonsense that they're going through having a deeper meaning. The most unrealistic thing though is Nicole coming back and not really calling out Richard for not following through with his promises of being responsible and not letting this all happen. It's all pretty silly and ends in a funny enough way though. Episode 12, The Labels, is a bit of a weird episode too, which I think really becomes a pattern here in the back half of the episodes. Here we focus on the current school counselor getting fired because of someone coming in and essentially hoisting them out through their influence over the principal that only gets stronger. She's been a smaller character here and there throughout the series, but now somehow comes in to nearly take over the school thanks to the power of her label maker, giving students labels based on how they come off, that then exacerbates said label, causing the students of the school to panic over it all. When we first see Gumball and Darwin getting labeled, Darwin gets labeled vulnerable, leading to him being overcautious about everything despite how pretty immune to being hurt by danger he is. Remember the episode from the last season when he was with this whole cult and he was practically invincible? Ain't no one messing with Darwin. But for Gumball, he gets labeled bad, as in being not good. But in the perception of how he takes it, he believes it means that he's a baddie, and things get a bit more out of pocket for his appearance and how he acts from there. There is this main message about people, specifically kids, getting labeled as a particular thing and how that can influence and define who they become or believe what they should become. Once the principal gets labeled and also forcibly kicked out of his position, the only way to seemingly defeat this almighty label maker and the person wielding it is Gumball being able to remove the labels from everyone else, absorbing them, and then becoming this ultra powerful character, and it all leads to him just cornering her in the principal's office and blowing her up. That's it. It just kind of ends. There's a lot of funny moments in this episode specifically, but substance-wise, it falls into the category of bringing up something, like talking about labels and how they can affect you, but then it's all pushed aside once Gumball just needs to power up and become all these labels because he can turn into this ultimate weapon, or something. It sadly feels like it loses what the plot of the episode was, or maybe it never had somewhere to go by the end of it anyway, but either way, again, it's still some good, it's a fun time, but it all leads to nowhere. I do, however, like the live-action sock puppet though. That's fun.
Coming up next, Gumball.
For episode 13, The Fools, we join Gumball and Darwin for April Fools, but something is very off, and Gumball doesn't like it. And that's the fact that no one is pulling any pranks, as Darwin explains that everyone is already on edge with the way the world is and what they have going on in their own personal lives. They don't have the time or the energy to deal with dishing out pranks or having any happen to them. With Gumball hating how certain days are losing their certain meanings, giving the example of Halloween not being about scaring as much as it's about just dressing up in some sort of cosplay now, he doesn't want April Fools to just now be another day. Gumball decides that he is going to be the prank king and gets Darwin to film him going around pulling off these pranks on as many people as he can in the town, pissing everyone off to the point that everyone in town goes mad, getting into a full-on riot-like prank war complete with purge masks and everything. But thanks to Gumball and Darwin uploading their pranks online and being easily identifiable, the news outs them, sending everyone in town to go after them, breaking into their house and eventually cornering them, and we get to see Gumball face the consequences of pushing people who are already on the edge off of it, as they force him into the ultimate prank, which is something that seems incredibly destructive and will force Gumball to understand if it was all really worth it or not. Naturally, this episode goes off the rails and it generally feels a bit terrifying to see Gumball and Darwin have to deal with everyone trying to break in every way they can into their house and go after them. You genuinely can feel how overwhelming all of this becomes to two kids basically as they deal with everyone going after them. It's frightening, but the outcome of the episode really only felt predictable towards the final moments of it, so I give the plot here its props for at least not making you feel one way or another right until before it all becomes clear. This one for sure was a real fun time. The next episode, episode 14, The Homework, may have some of the craziest visuals yet, and if I can compare it to anything, it's like the episode from the last season where they're basically on drugs. Here we have Gumball being sick, like legitimately very sick, and when getting to stay home all day by himself and rest and heal up, his sister Anais calls him and says that her important homework was left at home and Gumball's the only one who can help get it to her right now. He tries explaining that he's too sick and can't, but she hears everything as if he could and is going to, with him feeling like he needs to go and bring it to her now. His whole journey is just an agonizing set of complications and problems that eventually lead into a full-on fever dream territory. Visually, it gets really trippy. I think it's also comparable to what the mirror dimension looks like in the Doctor Strange movie. There is something that makes this episode feel more special than it needed to be, and that's a moment where Gumball passes out as he questions why he's even doing any of this, and in his dreams we get a flashback to when he was 8 and seeing his mother in the hospital being pregnant with Anais, and Nicole tells him that as a big brother he'll have to be there for his younger sister. There will be moments where she relies on him, and we see that being the motivating moment that wakes him up to help him finish his journey, and I genuinely love it. I think it's filled with a lot more heart than it needed to be, or heck, maybe even meant to be, but at the end of the day it really worked for me as an emotional link for Gumball as a character. Also, it legit takes Gumball maybe 4 or 5 minutes of the runtime of the episode to get up the staircase in front of the school, so I don't know who had a harder time with stairs, Gumball or John Wick in the 4th movie. Either way, this was a pretty great episode following a singular character's journey. Episode 15, The Sonder, has Gumball and Darwin riding on the public bus, as Gumball seemingly looks down upon everyone else because of him having this main character syndrome, causing him to hate everyone being in his way, taking up all of the room, and or bumping into him. When the bus nearly gets into an accident accident, time basically freezes as both Gumball and Darwin are astral projected from their bodies. Again, another Doctor Strange type of setup. As Darwin then tries helping Gumball see the error of his thinking and wanting to help him and take him on this vision quest through the lives of other people that are on the bus to understand what they are going through. Kind of like what we saw with Ocho in the earlier episode. Gumball calls this out for being set up in a cliche fashion, saying, oh, we're gonna learn some lessons and then we'll all sing a song at the end. But still, he ends up going along with this, and we get to see into the lives of the bus driver, this criminal character, the cheese guy, even the scary clown who keeps appearing and terrifying me. But this ends up giving some real legitimate backstories that have some real weight to understanding the characters and how they are the person they are today and in the position they are in today. It's really well done, and because I enjoyed it all so much, I dislike how the show flips part of this to show what really happened, taking away such beautiful moments from being something so real and meaningful. But like, I'm saying that's on me, not the show, because that's all done for a different reason that is fine and not making me hate the episode. I just thought certain things were something that meant something. But I don't know, maybe you feel the same or not, you tell me. Also, the moral kind of gets lost for the purposes of a joke in the end, but I don't think it's as careless as some of the other ways other episodes have pushed things aside or disregarded them in the end. For episode 16, The Mister, I believe it ends up delivering the best message by the end of it. Here we focus on the character of Idaho, a potato that ends up sprouting a little bud, and for a potato and within his family, this means he's an adult now. So this ends up being taken to literal levels where he is going to leave school and enter into the adult world, something that ends up being extremely scary and not easy one bit. Gumball and Darwin end up thinking it's cool for Idaho, and when they hear how tough things are out there, they decide to tag along with Idaho to show him how to do this thing called adulting correctly. Through them all going around and trying to look into different aspects of being an adult, we get to see how hard it is to make adult friends, how hard it is to get a job, how hard it is to get a house or an apartment, leading to it all feeling overwhelming. The show does take aim at some things to point out with modern problems like jobs that are hiring that need you to have experience, but you can't get experience because every job is requiring you to have some already. And even then, mentioning nepotism really overstepping the chances a general person looking for a job would have. Or problems with the housing market and housing crisis and the amount of vacant luxury apartments and houses out there with nothing else really available or affordable to the average person. But the real big message here really comes down to understanding that adults don't have things figured out either. When growing up, it's easy to feel that adults know everything and that one day you'll be just like them, but once you become an adult, you quickly realize that adults for the most part are just big kids who are trying to do their best navigating the world all the same as you. I appreciate how this episode presents this and how Idaho gets to learn all of this. So aside from that, the episode also has a lot of really good jokes, like this one about messing with the TV's settings to ruin the picture and sound quality. This might be up there as my favorite episode of the season. If not for all that I just mentioned, then definitely for seeing Idaho in a suit. This is the cutest thing I have ever seen. Episode 17, The Tracking, focuses on Richard making a bet with Harold about who is technically in better shape, having one day to prove this. But this isn't just a friendly bet, it's for the sake of the loser paying the winner's bills for a month, which freaks out the rest of the family for how broke this would make the Wattersons, and like, Harold is well off, so it's not on equal footing here for how this would affect both sides. To track all of this health, this is done through a smartwatch, but with Richard being Richard, the rest of the family tries pitching in to have their health tracked as well, as a way to cheat, as we see each of them having their own problems, making things worse for the readings on the watch. Nicole has anger issues, Gumball has performance anxiety, Darwin is literally just too filled with love, and Anais is too small for anything to make a difference. So they come up with another way to make the health readings be all over the place and unrealistic in order to find a way out of the bet. It's a smaller in scope episode that has a few pretty decent bits in it, and if anything, it'll just make you annoyed at smartwatches for how they take in readings, constantly buzz with notifications, not take in proper data, etc. But other than that, it's just an alright episode. If you'd ask me to explain what the heck was going on in episode 18, The Pants, I'd tell you, hey, I don't know. It's just weird, and when it ended, I just felt ready to move past it. The episode has Gumball feeling a type of way over Banana Joe wearing a pair of pants. It doesn't make sense to him as his peel is his clothes, and he's just wearing clothes on his clothes, with Gumball claiming that by doing this, it's going to start something far worse. After not being able to handle Gumball constantly calling him out and begging him to not be doing this, Banana Joe goes off in the cafeteria, calling out everyone in the school for how weird their standard outfits are, making everyone everyone feel self-conscious about themselves, sparking everyone to try and wear new clothing pieces and hide themselves in new clothes in general. Like, even poor Penny tries putting back on her shell, which is messed up based on how much it meant to her to shed having to wear that. Everyone ends up hating this, and Gumball explains that this is exactly what he claimed would happen, and now to stop it, their big solution is to all be naked. And on top of that, really try to freak out Banana Joe by having his parents show up naked. But this just results in Banana Joe taking off his peel and still wearing the pants. I don't know what the message is. Like, is it okay to dress how you want regardless of what other people think? Or is it okay to stop someone from doing so? I genuinely don't get what was happening here. The episode just kind of ends after all of that with no real resolution. And I'm just confused at what the point was. Sure, does everything need a point? No, of course not. But I mean, don't just give me random for the sake of random. To me, that's never been the thing that works for Gumball. So yeah, definitely one of, if not my least favorite episode of the season. Episode 19, The Necropanser, ends up following Carrie and Darwin's relationship and how that's all going. Continuing on from how Carrie uses Gumball's body as a way for her and Darwin to connect on a physical level, as he's had enough of it and what his body goes through, so the plan here then turns into the three of them heading into the underworld to help Carrie get a permanent body of her own. Through all of this, Carrie isn't being honest about what she does or doesn't want, and from not speaking her truth when they end up meeting this Necronomicon reference, it ends up nearly getting Darwin killed, to which his final words are saying "I love you" to her, as she then is able to speak about not wanting to get a permanent body, and that she feels she shouldn't have to change who she is just to be in a relationship with Darwin and for them to be happy. She likes being a ghost. And Darwin ends up being saved and expresses that he didn't know that she felt that way, and reassures her that he loves her the way she is, claiming they are soulmates, and it's all just genuinely really sweet. Overall, I don't know if the solution they come to in the end for their physical contact problem is all that much better than what it was when they had Gumball be her host body, but hey, at least the brothers aren't kissing anymore because of all of that, so that's great, am I right? Alright, here we are, episode 20, The Rewrite, the final episode of the season, and the episode that ends up tackling the big mystery of the cliffhanger from the end of the original Gumball series to help bridge the gap between the Amazing World of Gumball to the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. Things just feel off for Gumball and Darwin as they begin to question the reality around them, pointing out the things that don't make sense, and at the same time, we see that Rob is back and is working for the shady guy in the van, as we then get to see that after the ending moments of the original series, the shady guy ends up saving Rob, and with Gumball and Darwin snooping around into finding out the truth of what this world is that they are in, that it could all crumble apart like last time. And all of what's going on is being written into a script that ends up changing things and making anything happen. All of the changes that the shady guy is making is clearly making it more obvious that something is up, having Gumball and Darwin growing more suspicious over it all, with Rob trying to make him understand that in writing the script, it needs to make sense for the reality of the world. You can't just write whatever in here. It just breaks everything. As Rob tries working on the script himself, we see that he still feels the others only see him as this bad guy, and that's what the universe has in store for him, to always be this bad guy. And so he just needs to continue playing that role and ultimately sacrifice himself within the script in order to help fix the plot hole that's left in the Gumball universe. It's all very meta, and I do like the whole concept of the script being this type of God mode plot device that wills everything to happen the way it does. The best bit is when Rob starts doing his big sacrificial plan that he wrote, with him heading into the school and fighting Gumball and Darwin in this crazy epic fashion, as the script ends up getting updated by the standards and practices department, making small and major changes to what will be and what won't be allowed in the cartoon, poking fun at how this works for cartoons in real life and the ridiculous changes the creators are often told to make, but also in some good ways that do offer some actual challenges for the creators of these shows to make workarounds that make sense. Once everything kind of resolves in a way less epic fashion, we get a post-credit scene that the shady guy wrote into the script that has him going into the void to save Rob from it, as he then gives him his van to send him out of there, with the shady guy then retiring, saying that he's sold Gumball and Darwin all sorts of things over the years, and they will still need someone watching over them to protect them when they do get pulled off the air. So what did any of this mean? Well, the rewrite itself is rewriting how to get themselves out of the plot hole left in general, as the end of Gumball would have led into a movie, but because it isn't out yet and no real confirmation of the movie fully going into greenlit production, the series needed to tweak a few things and make some base things make sense while leaving open a little bit that can still lead into a movie. I think it's cool to see the shady guy getting some really nice moments and giving us the information that there's more to him than we'll ever know, at least for now. Rob's story continues to be really interesting as well, even when brought into this new series, as it seems that fate always has to have him in the light of being a bad guy, guy, but really he's doing what he can to look out for Gumball, almost like a sort of guardian angel, as we get to see how Rob both has to fall into place of being claimed as the bad guy while also defining his own destiny through it, and really showing his selflessness as a good guy. I think the episode does a good enough job to give you some missing answers, and does so in a unique way, all while delivering some pretty fantastic visuals, as it does leave you wanting more from where this storyline is going. But that's season 2 of the wonderfully weird world of Gumball, and compared to the first season, I do think that season 2 feels even better. But it also has a fair amount of episodes and moments that I also found not so great, or at least not for me. I think that Gumball being back like this is great, and I am happy that the series has been renewed for seasons 3 and 4, and I'll be there to cover them when they do come out, but hopefully the movie does come to fruition as well. I do think that Gumball may be one of the funniest and one of the best looking shows out there right now. It looked great back when it was the original series, but now you can feel the love and care going into making this new series still being there and burning brighter than ever. I said it last time and I'll say it again, if you enjoyed the original series, then you will enjoy this one as well. It feels like it just picked back up where it left off and continues to charge forward in some great new ways. This was a nice end of the year present to get a whole season to enjoy, and despite a few misses here in my opinion, Gumball clears most other cartoons for me right now. I absolutely am loving it, and loving that it's back in this capacity. But what about you? Are you a fan of the new Gumball series? Which episodes of season 2 stood out to you the most, and why? Let me know all your thoughts and more in the comments down below. Thank you to my Patreon members who help support these videos getting made. It means the world to me and I appreciate you all so much. Consider becoming a member for $5 a month to help support these videos getting made and getting access to some fun extras, as well as being involved more directly in the video topics themselves. Also, make sure to check out and follow me on Spotify for audio-only versions of these videos for when you're on the go or on a long drive. Thank you all so much for watching, and before you go, make sure to leave a like on this video and to subscribe for more videos like this coming soon. But until then, I've been Jordan Fringe. See you next year. Later.